which speaks to your book, right? Financing Africa, which
Yeah.
I read years ago, and I thought it was a kind of a manifesto of how we can live within our own means. Just speak a little bit to that.
So this book was a journey of 15 years. I know you said you read it a long time ago, but it came out in 2019, so it's not so old.
Yeah.
It's now 5 years. Took me 15 years to try and understand how to understand my continent. And one of the biggest things that pushed me to write this book was because people said you cannot map out the African continent. And so every time they would sign agreements or debate on the size of an economy, they would say, oh, yeah, but the data is not good and we can't find information. And so I wrote this with two things in mind: to prove that we were mappable, that it was possible to map the continent out.
Data-wise.
Yes, data-wise. And then to say, well, yeah, okay, the data is not perfect, but no country in the world has got perfect data anyway. But at least we have taken that first step. We've mapped it. So this is actually the first book of its kind globally. The funny thing is that the Latin Americans want me to do one for them as well, because apparently they don't have it either.
Okay.
But what I really love about my book is that I also try to make it understandable for people without a background in tax or finance.
Okay.
I've used African proverbs and all sorts of cultural connections, I hope, from across the continent so that people could actually get it. And one of the important things I think comes from the book is that once you finish going through it, you can actually see your continent. You can understand it. And hopefully you can now understand your government and the challenges that it faces.
So as you go towards the end, let's talk a little bit about what does the digital era give both the citizen, the taxpayers, and the government in this process of kind of reaching a meeting point? What does digitization do to taxation, revenues, debt, etc.?
So digitization makes information move very fast and sometimes in incomplete pieces. Yeah. So it's good because the people can get better access and knowledge to information. The negative part of it is what I mentioned, this 40% internet penetration on the continent, for example, means that if you are extremely poor and cannot afford a smartphone, you really will be off the grid when it comes to being able to hold your government accountable and get knowledge. But I think the most important thing which I see coming out of the financing spaces and digitization is the creation of artificial entities. You can now create a company in, I don't know, Argentina, but it will look like it's based in Liechtenstein and the bank will be in the Bahamas. Like, this is what digitization allows. So it basically allows for middle, upper middle, and upper class people to become extremely mobile and to be completely off the net of a government if they want to be. And I think this is a problem because then that responsibility of supporting a country then gets pushed down towards the middle and the lower classes. And so I think what we need to do with digitization is to take it very carefully, but to also make sure that everybody continues to pay their fair share. Most importantly, the wealthy. Although a lot of our conversation has been on the poor, I think the responsibility in a digital age rests very squarely on people who have wealth, who are now utilizing the routes that you can find online to actually remove their finances from a country and not pay their fair share of tax. I don't say pay what you're not supposed to pay. They should pay, but their fair share of tax. Because I think if they paid it, maybe you wouldn't have to pay tax below earning $5,000 a month. I mean, it can actually happen if we're all in it, because across the world, it's on average 30 to 40% of human beings are paying their income taxes in some parts of the world, especially the developing countries.
Okay, the last word, it's about your work. What should we expect of your work? So it's a global job that is really looking at a very difficult subject, a subject that not necessarily all governments will be excited about. multinational corporations and particular individuals? What should we expect of it?
So I'm now 2.5 years in the mandate. I'll be there for, God willing, another 3.5 years. And I think what you have to look forward to is hopefully being able to better understand the connections between debt and tax, illicit financial flows, and how it affects the human being on the ground. One of the things that I have been really focusing on is not just looking at small countries, but also conflict-prone countries. But I'm also looking at issues around militarization and the amount of finance it takes away from development and growth and human rights as well. So over the next 3 years, the plan is to open up new spaces and open up new conversations. My mandate is what is called a contested mandate. There are countries that permanently believe or have permanently believed for the past 30 years that it shouldn't exist because it's a 30-year-old mandate. But I think that even the ones that don't support its existence benefit from the conversations I bring to the table. Because at an international level, I try and make the issues of the financial realities and the implications that financial decisions have on the ability of sometimes a human being to actually live. And I think being able to make that connection is, I hope, what I will leave behind once I'm done. But I should point out that it is not a job. I'm an independent expert, which means that I am not an employee of the United Nations. I am independent and unbiased, and I am as quick to send a letter to entities within the UN as I am to send to those around the world.
Okay.